Chinese President Xi Jinping in the U.S. and is scheduled to meet with some of the world's top business leaders today. Joining us now with his take on the visit is former Reagan economic advisor Art Laffer. Art, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Maria. It's lovely to be with you again. My favorite Yogi Berra, by the way. Do you remember that one in the restaurant? That restaurant is so full, no one goes there anymore.
I like that one. I mean, I'm
love
sure
Yogi
you're a traditionalist.
Berra.
I'm a traditionalist. You know, it ain't over till it's over. It's probably
It ain't over till it's over.
Yeah. But then how about the deja vu? Deja vu all over
we
again. We could go all day about Yogi Berra. What a wonderful soul. May he rest in peace. Art, the president of China in the U.S. today. What's your take on this trip from Chinese leaders?
Well, I think they're trying to soften relationships with the U.S. and trying to make things a lot better and hopefully cooperating more with the United States. You know, China, Maria, is extremely important to the United States. It's our best trading partner. I mean, you know, without China, there is no Walmart. Without Walmart, there is no middle class or lower class prosperity. We desperately need China, and they desperately need us. And the better off we can get along together, I think the better off this world will be.
Maybe, but can we trust them, right? I mean, we're all debating whether or not these economic numbers are actually for real. What is the growth of China? We're debating about cybercrime, and he said today he wants to join the U.S. in battling cybercrime. Meanwhile, isn't it coming from his country?
Well, you know, if he's saying we want to battle cybercrime, that's a heck of a lot better than saying we want to battle you over our cybercrime coming in. I mean, it is a move in the right direction. Can you expect full source support? No, of course not. But China is really important, and we should do all we can to maintain good relations with China. I went to China in the first one in recent times in October of 1970 with George Shultz and John Ehrlichman in the pre-Kissinger trip. And I was firmly in the belief that China was our enemy and all that. And I fell in love with China. China is really a phenomenal country that we would be very foolish to try to make an enemy out of it. And they would be foolish to make an enemy out of us.
Yeah, but Reagan, I mean, this is a big, second largest economy. And what happens in China impacts this economy.
Absolutely. And,
sure does.
And Art, like, it makes sense to say that, and we all want that, but China is exerting growing protectionism and is really going after U.S. intellectual property with this new national security law. I mentioned it last hour. There was some new banking regulations about software. They're trying to get at U.S. banks' code. And it doesn't seem like it's going in our direction. And is there really anything in a discussion while Xi Jinping's here that will change that?
Well, I hope so. I mean, but if you look at it, protectionism has a whole huge lobby of its own and always has. It's a very, very poor thought process that brings on protectionism. But, you know, in the Nixon administration on right now, and if you look at a lot of the discussion in the politics of the presidential race, protectionism is playing a fairly major role in that, too. And I think all we have to do is make sure we oppose protectionism at every place we possibly can. Yes, of course we need to enforce U.S. laws that they can't come in and steal all of our secrets and all that. Of course we need to do that. But we want to make sure that we don't throw that proverbial baby out with the bathwater. They are enormously important to the prosperity of America.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And we shouldn't forget that.
All right, we got some investors on the panel this morning. Michael Block from Rhino Trading and Dominick Tavella from Diversified Private Wealth. How important is the China story to the way you allocate capital right now?
You know, really, Maria, it's tremendous. You know, unfortunately, we have to really play the long game here with China. What's going on is they're evolving as an economy. They're obviously working some kinks out. The key thing that I tell people about Xi is he's working for the long run here. He's trying to put some reforms in place. We've seen some of it impact some of the consumer-related stocks. Like, let's look at the gaming stocks and what they've done in the past year in China. And a lot of that has been Xi cracking down on corruption in this unprecedented move. And it's cut down on the amount of money that's being spent in Macau, unfortunately, for investors in these companies. I think we're going to see a lot more moves like that. There's going to be a lot of house cleaning with the state-owned enterprises. We see how weak the PMI was overnight for the small to mid-sized enterprises, down to 47. Just keeps going lower.
So is it important in terms of allocating capital for you?
For me, it's called stay away, but in the long term, this is going to be great. And what's going to drive it eventually is going to be the Chinese consumer. I'm in no hurry.
Yeah, we have a 2.5% to 5% allocation to the Far East. So when you look at China, India, and the whole Far East section, you look at about 60% of the world economy, consumers, growing consumer spending. You got to be involved in that. You can't look at this thing as a 3 or 6 month cycle. You have to look at a 3, 6, 10-year cycle, and to allocate a small portion of your portfolio, I don't think is a terrible idea.
Even though the government keeps intervening, right?
Well, it's because we say U.S. businesses need to be involved there. They do need to be involved there, but at a much greater risk to their own businesses.
But look at this
point.
dinner the other night. Who was there? Boeing was there. Microsoft was there. Every major Starbucks, for God's sake. Every major company sitting at that table.
Themselves in their
clapping their hands, going, hello, how are you?
I love the fact that the president of China comes and the first step is, let me go to Microsoft, let me go to Boeing, and let me go to Amazon. It's really interesting. Art, let me get your take on I don't think you and I have spoken since the Fed left rates unchanged, and what that tells us about where we are in terms of the economy. What needs to be done to move the needle on jobs? And are we hearing that from the current slate of presidential hopefuls?
Well, we are hearing from some of them. I mean, every single Republican hopeful is going for lower tax rates, broader tax base, spending restraint, sound money, deregulation. So I think the Republican candidates on balance are really very much in the right wavelength and moving in the right direction. What I think happens here, though, on the interest rates, I think the Fed board does not want to raise interest rates. Their model of the world is low interest rates leads to a better housing market than higher interest rates. They're wrong. I mean, they're just plain wrong. Higher interest rates, at least up to market clearing prices, would bring in much more capital to the housing market. Who wants to lend money at 3.5% for 30 years? And what they've done by keeping interest rates so low, Maria, is they've stifled all of the supply of mortgage capital to really fuel this housing market that should be a boom.
Yeah.
You can't have a boom in America without a good housing market.
And unfortunately, Janet Yellen admitted last week that the housing traction is not much. I mean, we haven't really seen housing.
Because of them.
Yeah, exactly. Get to where we should see it in this part of the cycle. Very quickly on Hillary yesterday, what's your take on the commentary about price gouging?
Oh, God. I mean, she just can't find a left-wing cause she can't hug closer. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, now she comes out against the XL pipeline. I mean, I don't understand her strategy. She's really moving sharply to the left, and I don't think Bernie Sanders is her problem. I mean, if she gets nominated under these circumstances, she'll be just sitting duck for the Republicans, frankly.
Yeah,
I just don't see what she's doing.
She keeps showing, a very, very hard left, whether it be, saying no to the pipeline or what she said yesterday about health care and price gouging. But, Dagan has experienced this on a very personal level. Prescription drug prices are way too expensive.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, Art, I've said this, and I apologize to David for going after him like that and not giving him
we had the chairman of GOPAC on, and Dagan wanted answers.
The issue is it's the number one priority among health care for Americans is the cost of prescription drug prices. They were up about 12% last year, the biggest increase in a decade. And you have all these incredible drugs coming on the market for, like, cancer that are going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars that people, even with copays, are not going to be able to afford many of them.
So the question you asked yesterday is, you save somebody's life, but then you bankrupt them.
Right. And so Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders have come out, Art, and said, we need to negotiate drug prices for Medicare. The government does, which you can't do right now. And I was just saying the Republicans have yet to come up with a really coherent response to that. And I think that the Democratic candidates are getting a leg up, at least right now.
What do you think?
Well, they may verbally be getting a leg up, Dagan, but I think that the free market here and the provision of those drugs, I mean, the very fact that we're coming up with all of these new, even if they are very expensive drugs that really do make a difference to the health of people, that's what free market capitalism is all about. And what we should have at most is a catastrophic health care plan where people don't go bankrupt because of their health problems. But other than that, I think the free market would bring those drug prices down, not raise them, and I think we'd be far better off with much less regulation, much less control over the U.S. health care market than we currently have.
So Hillary wants to regulate this.
I know, and she's going to regulate prices much higher because you'll not be able to get the drugs. There's going to be some allocation there that we're going to have to allocate. We're doing that with all sorts of regulations on all sorts of issues here on transplants and all that sort of stuff. The regulations are coming in, deciding who gets what, when, where, and how. That's not the way markets are supposed to operate, and that's not the way the healthcare system will work.